Hello, my name is Helen Rhodes, and today I will be reviewing the Tylenol Crisis Project taken from Dr. Kirsner's book entitled Project Management Case Studies. In 1982, the concept of crisis management started with the death of 7 people from ingesting Tylenol capsules laced with poison. Historically, project management is thought of as a structured and deliberate process. On the other hand, crisis management demands the project manager make quick and effective decisions without planning. There are 2 types of crises: natural disasters and man-made. Crisis management typically deals with crises caused by humans. The Tylenol crisis was man-made as it was the first known case of deaths occurring from product tampering. Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer of Tylenol, took a 3-phase approach to managing the crisis. The first phase was discovery, which involved gathering of information to fully determine the problem and associated risks. The second phase was assessing and quantifying the risks and containing any possible harm. The third phase of managing the crisis was implementing a recovery plan and mitigating risks. The phases consisted of very short time frames, unlike those found in typical projects. In crisis management, the executive project sponsor should be actively involved in the project. In this case study, the CEO, James Burke, was the point person for the crisis. There were several reasons for this. The Tylenol crisis could become a national crisis, the reputation of the corporation was at stake, and the division of Johnson & Johnson that manufactured Tylenol might not be able to handle this critical issue by itself. The CEO was to act as spokesperson for the corporation. In this situation, it was very important for a strong and experienced leader to act as project sponsor. Depending on the size and complexity of the crisis, a committee should be formed because it may be hard for a single project manager to address and effectively resolve all issues in a timely manner. In crisis management, project governance is an effective framework in which to make project decisions. Governance allows for consistent management, homogeneous processes, and decision-making abilities designated by specific areas of responsibility. When a single project sponsor or manager is expected to make all decisions, it can slow down the process, and in a crisis, time is critical. Forming a crisis governance committee in the Tylenol case is appropriate because it involves executive management and focuses on defining responsibilities and strategic decision-making in defining deliverables, targets, objectives, and considers environmental factors. To gain trust with stakeholders, it is important that communication is honest and transparent, especially during crisis situations. The project sponsor acts as a corporate spokesperson and should be a leader with strong communication skills. The spokesperson should be highly visible during the crisis, especially to the public and media, so that rumors are distilled and facts are accurately represented and understood. In crisis management, there are many affected stakeholders, some of whom may have competing interests. It is important for the corporate spokesperson to understand the needs of the stakeholders and be capable of successfully negotiating and resolving conflict. Managing stakeholders during a crisis is especially important. A project sponsor must understand the stakeholders' demands and the amount of power and influence they have over the crisis. Managing stakeholder relations can be challenging for several reasons. It is not always easy to identify all stakeholders, and in the case of global crises, there are a significant number of stakeholders to identify. Additionally, not all stakeholder issues are identifiable and can conflict with one another. In the Tylenol case, stakeholders included consumers, stockholders, lending institutions, government, management, and employees. Because it is nearly impossible to satisfy all stakeholders, the project manager must decide which stakeholders' needs are more important. In ranking the importance of stakeholders and subsequent decision-making process, the project sponsor and committee fell back on their corporate doctrine, which prioritized allegiance first to the consumer, then employees, followed by community it served, and lastly, the stockholder. A company must put corporate social responsibility above their profits. It should always take responsibility for the crisis and actively participate in finding resolution to the problem. In the case of Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson recalled the product and was the first company in the industry to reissue the medicine in new triple-sealed, tamper-resistant packaging. Additionally, in 1986, another customer was poisoned by the Tylenol product. This was found to be an isolated incident. However, Johnson & Johnson did not want to take the chance that another customer could be harmed and stopped manufacturing Tylenol in capsule form. Even though the capsule represented 1/3 of Tylenol sales, the company chose to protect its consumers over profits. Not only is open and honest communication crucial to managing a crisis effectively, response time is also critical. When a company is reluctant to respond quickly, the stakeholders will view it as an attempt of hiding something, and this causes mistrust. Johnson & Johnson's corporate doctrine provided a path for prioritization and rapid response time in decision-making and communication to stakeholders. Because Johnson & Johnson's credo defined who the company was, it was easier to react to the crisis and make appropriate decisions. Additionally, to ensure a quick response time, a project manager must be willing to seek outside advice from experts. In a crisis, it is very important for the project sponsor and company to remain engaged and act compassionately towards the stakeholders that are affected by the crisis. The crisis project team must listen to the stakeholders to clearly understand their point of view. Before making a statement, all relevant information should be collected, and informal communication should be followed up with formal communication to ensure there is no misunderstanding. The culture in which a message is being delivered should also be understood so no undue conflict arises. Ineffective communication only makes a crisis worse, so if there is something beyond a project manager's expertise, outside help should be sought. The information gathered during a crisis should be documented and treated as it will be public information. Documenting is important in recording the events of a crisis and is necessary in developing a containment plan, recovery plan, and risk mitigation plan. It is also needed to create a lessons learned document. Capturing lessons learned is important to help manage future crises. Lessons learned documentation can act as a roadmap and prevent future crises by showing early warning signs and ways to correct issues before they become critical problems. In conclusion, the Tylenol case is an example of a corporation that successfully managed a major crisis. This was accomplished through the executive project sponsor's active involvement upon discovery of the issue. The CEO acted as both project sponsor and corporate spokesperson and was the point person for communications and relayed information in an open and honest way. By cooperating with the media and government agencies, Johnson & Johnson maintained a positive image. They acted socially responsible and reacted swiftly to the crisis by following the priorities set in their corporate credo. This included focusing on the consumer and the consumer's affected families. Overall, Johnson & Johnson took a potentially devastating financial crisis and turned it around to regain market share of the Tylenol product in tablet form. Thank you for listening to my presentation today, and I hope you have learned about managing crisis projects.